Hello, this case project analysis of the 2014 Home Depot data breach is presented by Group 11. My name is Allie Cope and I am pleased to introduce our presentation. I will provide a brief executive summary, then Mike will introduce us to the Home Depot data breach, the history of Home Depot security protocols, and how that is connected to the breach. I will then explain how the attackers accessed this information and what it cost Home Depot. Joseph will conclude with helping us to understand what can be done to stop future attacks and what we hope you will take away from this analysis. Home Depot was the victim of a malware attack that lasted 5 months. During that time, 56 million credit card and debit card numbers were stolen, as well as customer email addresses. This information was sold on the dark web. Home Depot was notified of the breach by credit card companies and police. The breach was accomplished using vendor credentials. Using a zero-day vulnerability, they were able to access the whole system and install memory scraping software to capture credit card information. This attack was targeted to the self-checkout point-of-sale machines. The initial fiscal impact was $62 million, but final estimates are around $200 million. Damage could have been reduced if Home Depot had followed industry standards for security protocols.
In April of 2014, hackers were able to access Home Depot's computer network. The hackers had obtained stolen vendor credentials and were then able to upload malware onto the Home Depot company network. The focus of this malware was to do two things. Firstly, the hackers wanted to obtain debit and credit card numbers from individuals who had used their debit and credit cards at Home Depot, and they wanted to obtain email addresses from customers who had linked it with their Home Depot accounts. In April 2014, they were able to steal 56 million debit and credit card numbers, as well as 56 million email addresses. This stolen information, at the time, costed Home Depot an estimated $62 million worth of damages, and up till this point in time, has now cost them up to $200 million of damage. This wasn't the first issue or the first sign that Home Depot had an issue with their security problem. Home Depot's security problems really were two-part. Firstly, they had poor implementation of security, and they had a history of lack of interest in security in their systems. In terms of the poor implementation of security, Home Depot, at the time of the attack, was using outdated security software. The attack happened in 2014, and at that time, they were using old Symantec antivirus software from 2007. When Home Depot would have security checks of their systems when it was scheduled, many times they would go undone, and these security checks were few and far in between when completed. When Home Depot would hire individuals, they did not do a good enough job vetting those people. In 2012, Home Depot hired a computer engineer by the name of Ricky Joe Mitchell, and they put him in charge of over 2,200 Home Depot store security systems. Before he'd been working at Home Depot, he had worked at EarnVest Operating. It came out a few months after working at Home Depot that while he'd been working at EarnVest, that he had disabled the security systems on multiple computers, leaving them vulnerable to hackers. And because of that, he was sentenced to 4 years of federal prison. Even though all of these things happened, many individuals within the company went to management personnel telling them, we need to increase the security of the systems. We need to improve this. But they were often rebuffed with words like, we're Home Depot, we sell hammers. So looking at all this, the real question is, why didn't this happen to them sooner? Because of their slow response in terms of upgrading their systems, seeing hacks and data breaches happen to other companies like Target, it's a real question why this didn't happen to them sooner. Because of their lack of up-to-date security software, their slowness in their protocol, and a number of other factors, these things left Home Depot a target to the hackers. I'm done.
How did this happen? Attackers used third-party vendor credentials to access the vendor environment in the Home Depot system. From there, they exploited a zero-day vulnerability in the Windows system. This allowed them to gain access to the Home Depot corporate environment. They were no longer restricted in their access, but had gained access to the whole system. Once they were in the corporate environment system, they installed their memory scraping software on more than 7,500 self-checkout point-of-sale terminals. During the time that the malware was active, the attackers were able to capture information of 56 million credit and debit card numbers. The information for the stolen cards were put up for sale on the dark web and were purchased. In addition, 53 million email addresses were stolen and used in large phishing campaigns. While the methods used in the breach are known and understood, the identity of the attackers is still unknown. So in order to understand what truly happened, we have to understand what memory scraping malware is. Memory scraping malware is able to read the clear text payment information that is contained on the RAM of a point-of-sale terminal. In the case of Home Depot, it was the self-checkout terminals that were accessed. The malware captures the data using regular expressions that seem totally legitimate to the system. However, once the information is captured, it is sent to the attacker's servers for their personal use. The only way to prevent this type of malware is to ensure that the point-of-sale system is properly locked down. The fiscal impact for the Home Depot breach continues to grow as time goes on. Initially, in response to the breach, Home Depot issued a press release and posted a notice on their website regarding the breach. They offered customers free identity protection and credit monitoring for a year. In addition, those customers with Home Depot project loan cards were given $50 gift cards to show the company's appreciation for their continued loyalty. These costs were just the beginning of what Home Depot would have to pay. Home Depot agreed to pay out a $19.5 million settlement to those customers who'd been affected by the breach. They also paid out at least $134.5 million to banks and credit card companies. An additional $25 million settlement was agreed upon to cover the damages that banks suffered as a result of the breach. Banks and credit card companies are able to file claims of $2 per card number stolen, or 60% of proven uncompensated losses. With all of these payouts and the legal fees incurred, Home Depot has paid or will be paying around $179 million as a result of the data breach. But this number does not include any private settlements that are often kept secret. To ensure that Home Depot would not be hacked again, they also added several additional security measures. First, they implemented enhanced encryption for the payment processing system. This takes payment information and scrambles it to make it unreadable and therefore virtually useless to hackers. They also implemented chip and pin technology to increase the security of their card readers. Including all of these fees as well as legal cost settlements and the increased security, some experts are estimating that the final costs could be over $200 million for Home Depot. These costs are inclusive of only what it takes to compensate the victims of the breach and do not include estimations of lost profits due to future customer distrust.
All right, so a lot of businesses may wonder if it's a good idea to invest in security, and the Home Depot case is a good example of how they could have saved themselves millions of dollars if they had taken the time to put things in place that can prevent and detect attacks. Some of the things that could have helped them is who has access to information. A lot of companies with sensitive data will have former employees' accounts still be able to access that. And so just making sure you're limiting who has access and making sure that only people who really need access can help down on leaks. And one of the things that we found is that while you maybe can't prevent every attack, you can detect things quicker with things like auditing software and being able to see if there's people inside your system for data breaches. And so Home Depot was an attack that was kind of on the point of the sale with the credit cards, but auditing software can prevent other attacks and just make it easier for you to pick up on when somebody has information that they shouldn't. And so some of the takeaways from this are that these attacks can be handled better if you're just honest. And for instance, Target didn't really tell people that they had been attacked, and it ended up costing them a lot more money than Home Depot, who told people there had been a breach. So it allowed customers to get ahead of it a little bit more and cancel sensitive information. And so that's some of the takeaways we have from that.